Okay, welcome everybody. We're in the home stretch now. Just a few more sessions left before the end of day one here at Sustainability Live. And delighted to welcome to the stage in a second, before I introduce him, Dharmesh DJ Jani. He's not a DJ, sorry. Although he might be, who knows? He is going to be running through a presentation. He has got a deck. I don't know if that counts as being a DJ. But DJ has more than 20 years of industry experience and currently serves as the Director of Infrastructure, Ecosystem and Partnerships at Meta. Now, someone asked us earlier, who's Meta? And, well, the artist formerly known as Facebook, yes. I'm sure that everybody in this room is familiar with Meta. And DJ is going to talk about the Open Compute Project, OCP, net zero carbon and circularity initiatives and other innovations as well that Meta are implementing. So please give DJ a warm welcome. DJ.
Thank you. Imagine making an inquiry that echoes through the generations, changing the course of humanity. 127 years ago, on the campuses of Stockholm University, this brilliant scientist asked one simple question. Does the surface temperature of ground in any way depend on heat-absorbing gases in the atmosphere? His name was Svante Arrhenius. And with that one simple, one profound question, he set the humanity on a path which in some small way has brought all of us here together. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dharmesh, Jani, and I'm delighted to be here. I welcome all of you. This is a wonderful week to start this event. This is a week when we celebrate International Day for Clean Air. So let's pledge to work together to make air clean for everyone, everywhere. I'm also equally delighted to share work of my colleagues at Meta. So without much delay, let's get started. Svante Arrhenius was also the first person to propose link between human activities and the level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. He was also the first person to calculate changes in the temperature if carbon dioxide levels were to change, double, or reduce by half. And amazingly, he did all of this in April of 1896, and his estimates are very close to the modern estimates. Generations came and went by, breathing the air without realizing it was changing. All of that started changing in 1950s when one Charles Keeling started measuring carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere. His meticulous measurements lasted 30 years, and Keeling curves, as they are known today, showed continuous rise of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. His son continued to make these measurements in 21st century, and it continued to show the rising levels of carbon dioxide. 21st century was also when world came into internet age. Many new companies were formed, and Facebook, as it was known at that time, was also launched in 2004 with a mission to empower people, to build communities and bring world closer together. Today, Meta products allow over 3 billion people to exercise this power globally on a daily basis. In the following year, 2005, Kyoto Protocol entered in full force. This was conceived in 1997, and then the world continued to work on a framework, and in a historic moment in 2015, 196 countries came together to sign the Paris Climate Accord. They vowed to keep the rise of temperature below 2 degrees and also to reduce the global greenhouse gas emission below 50% by 2030. This was also a decade when Meta started investing in its internal sustainability initiatives. We set teams, targets, milestones, and in a historic moment in 2020, we achieved multiple firsts. We achieved net zero operationally for the first time in our history. This was primarily due to use of renewable energy, which powered all of our data centers. Today, Meta owns around 10,000 megawatts of renewable energy portfolio, one of the largest in the world. In North America alone, we have around 5,500 megawatts of renewable energy portfolio. We didn't stop there. In 2020, we also restored around 5.8 million cubic meters of water. That is a lot of water, and I was trying to get my head around this number, so I decided to do some quick math. And with this amount of water, we can provide United Kingdom uninterrupted supply of beer for 1 year. Now, this is something we can say cheers to, yeah? And in 2020, we also had our boldest announcement of achieving net zero across all of our activities by 2030. And this is the destination we want to get to in mere 7 years from now. So that begs a very simple question. Where are we today? Let's look at some numbers. We recently published our 2022 carbon emission numbers, and in 2022, Meta reported 8.5 million metric tons of carbon emission, and this included all of its activities, Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3. If you take a closer look, you'll find that Scope 3 constitutes 99% of our emissions. In fact, we net out Scope 1 and 2 by buying over 80,000 tons of carbon credits. So effectively, all of our 2022 emissions are because of Scope 3. Scope 3 includes all of our activities across our supply chain, which includes things from getting raw material into manufacturing plant, building systems, deploying them in data centers, logistics, all of that part of our supply chain. And this number is expected to continue to grow in coming years, going into 2030. This could grow maybe 2 to 3 times, depending on how our businesses are growing. And this is the challenge which we have today to tackle. We have to look forward and then implement policies today which can go and tackle things which might happen in future. So what exactly is our strategy to get this number down to 0? We have 3-pronged strategy. Meta is carbon reduction first company. What it means is decarbonization is the first lever we are going to use to get the number down. I mentioned about Scope 3 and suppliers constituting big emission component. So working and engaging with suppliers is our second lever. And then whatever is remaining, we are going to use carbon removal technologies to get us down to 0. We are today working on all of these 3 fronts. Let me go into more detail on each of these strategic elements, starting with decarbonization. Decarbonization, you have heard throughout the day, everyone has talked about various components. In Meta, we consider 3 main pathways. First, you try to consume less. When you consume less, you don't have to account for that carbon. Next, you design better with circularity in your design. So you can extend your designs longer. And third, you invest in innovative technologies and materials to get new ideas for direct air carbon capture as well as fuel technologies. So let me go into specific details around all these 3 ideas which we are pursuing with some example. This building we are sitting in, the buildings everywhere you see, In the morning keynote you heard, buildings constitute one of the big carbon elements. The concrete in the building constitutes that carbon. Meta is investing in using alternate material like ash, powdered glass, and even clay as a component of cement, where we can reduce carbon by almost 40%. Just by changing the mixture by 20-30% with these alternate elements, you can get your carbon down. On the design side, we build our own servers, our own networking gear, our own storage. We open source all of our designs through Open Compute project. We are building circularity principles into these designs so we can either reuse some of these components or we can use the entire systems and redeploy them in other parts of country or even in other places in the supply chain. And we are also looking at generative AI technology to come up with new technologies which can do direct air capture of carbon, because carbon removal is going to be important. We are also looking at new fuel technologies, because diesel engines which power our backup data center energy, we want to replace it with new fuel technologies. Next, I talked about engaging suppliers. This is very critical, and again, we have to start by helping everyone measure where they are. Because you start your journey from the point where you know where you are, and then you decide where to go. And then you work with these suppliers to help them implement certain benchmarks so they can target their roadmap which matches with our roadmap. And then we want to help them implement all of these in their supply chain. The supplier engagement program started a couple of years ago. In 2021, we had around 40 suppliers in this program. In 2022, that number went to 116 suppliers. And by 2026, we are expecting roughly 2/3 of our spend, suppliers representing 2/3 of our spend into this program, and that actually represents about 80% of our carbon emission. So that's on the supplier engagement. And this also goes into the responsible supply chain program, which Meta has launched. The last piece I want to talk about is using the technology for carbon capture. So we want to use nature-based solutions which are also using innovative technologies. Those are the two critical elements in making our decision. Beyond that, there are 6 other factors which we look at for any carbon capture project which we invest in. We want to ensure that all of these projects sequester carbon for a very long time. We also want to maintain the biodiversity, ecosystem, economics of the communities where these projects will be implemented. There should be a clear additionality demonstrated by these projects. We want to finance those projects where the carbon capture otherwise would not have happened naturally. And all of this has to be verified by standard accounting, and it should be auditable. These are the ways in which we are working. However, as we say often in Meta, our journey is only 1% finished. We have many challenges ahead of us. Last year at Open Compute Summit in San Jose, I talked about these challenges. Nothing has changed since I talked about them. And these are big enough challenges that they are worth repeating here. So let me go into them. I call them big, hairy, audacious goals. First one is to understand embodied carbon in silicon. Silicon powers everything which is in our data center, from compute to AI systems to networking to storage. Everything runs on silicon. Trying to understand what amount of carbon is embodied in these devices is table stake. Next, I mentioned in decarbonization, circularity. Circularity actually has 2 components. Technical component, because you want to find way to extend the life cycle of devices, However, for me, there is a very important business component, because when you extend the life cycle of a device, it has an impact on business. We heard throughout the day, many speakers talked about how aligning with economics is very important. This problem cannot be solved by one company. It has to be solved in a collective manner to ensure that the motivations are all aligned to do the right thing. And it extends across the supply chain. The last one is actually my favorite. I've heard about power usage efficiency and data centers throughout my career. Many of you as well have heard that. For me, actually, this is a table stake. Being an efficient organization or using efficiency to help yourself is a table stake. I'll tell you a little story. Growing up in India, every time I would leave my room with lights on and fan running, my father would magically appear and tap me on the head and say, "Turn the lights off." He was not trying to be sustainable. He was not trying to be green. He was just watching out for his wallet, and he wanted to have lower electricity bill. But he was constantly improving the PUE of the household. So PUE is a table stake. We have to start looking at carbon. We have to look at how data centers are optimizing for lowering carbon emission. These three are very complex challenges, and they require collaboration across the entire industry, because no one company has the answer for this. And Meta has been doing a lot in terms of pushing the collaboration within the industry, and I'm going to talk about a few of them. First, Meta joined IMEC, which is out of Belgium, Inter-University Microelectronics Center, and they specialize in working with semiconductor industry, and they have launched a sustainability program to qualify the carbon emission across semiconductor manufacturing line. And this is where Meta is contributing its know-how and its knowledge and working with other partners to help push this forward. Next, Meta has also been very instrumental in launching sustainability as a top project in open compute. Open compute, as many of you may know, is the largest open source project on the planet for all technologies which go into data center. Servers, storage, networking, everything. It was launched in 2011, and today it has over 300 members. Meta worked diligently starting in 2019 to get industry to work on this very important element within open compute. And finally, last year, we got this at a full project level. We even got sustainability as the 5th tenet for all the designs which are contributed into OCP. So that brings a very interesting question. You know, I often, when I'm sitting in audience and I'm listening to somebody talk, at the end, I'm always wondering, so what is it that I can do? Or what is it that I can take away from this particular talk? Each of us have a way to contribute, and I want to give you a very clear direction of what each of you could do. Within Open Compute, we have launched a new work stream this year. In fact, this was launched a couple of months back. It starts with looking at sustainability metrics, because as I mentioned, PUE is not enough. We have to define new way to qualify data center, and we don't have the answer. So we are working with others to figure out what's the right way to do this. Next, we are looking at better ways to do power telemetry, because power is such an important element of all data centers all over the world. Next, I talked about carbon modeling. Again, there are a lot of ideas here on how exactly to take this problem, break it into a subset, and perhaps attack it one at a time. And last but not least, we are also excited to start working on direct air capture. This is something which is going to be announced at Open Compute Global Summit in October in San Jose next month. So these are all the projects which all of you can think of getting involved with. You can go to the Open Compute website. You can try to reach me. And there is something which each and every one of you have which can make this project better. I know this. I've listened to the whole day discussion. All of you have a lot of brilliant ideas, and we are looking for ways to work in open source manner to bring these ideas to fruition. And we must do this. We must work together to do this for the sake of pale blue dot. This is a photograph inspired by late astronomer Carl Sagan. Voyager spacecraft was about 6.5 billion kilometers away outside the orbit of Neptune. It turned one last time and took a photograph of Earth. In this photograph, Earth is not even 1 pixel large. It is almost like a mote of dust suspended in sunbeam. This is where all the life we know exists. From the simplest of a bacteria to the largest of the blue whale. From the slowest of the snail to the fastest of the cheetah and peregrine falcon. To the simplest of the jellyfish with few neurons, to complex humans, all of us here with brains in our skull, forests covering land, oceans with creature. In the cosmic vastness, in the cosmic darkness, this is the only place where we know life exists. So we must do everything to protect this pale blue dot, for this is the destiny we all share together. Thank you very much for your time.